Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to cut right through the hype today and talk about what's really going on with artificial intelligence in healthcare. And I'm not talking about some far-off future. This is happening right now in 2026. And, it's way more complicated than most people think.
All right, so let's just start with a number that kind of grounds this whole conversation. 52.1%. So what is that? Well, a huge meta-analysis looking at over 80 studies found that right now, generative AI models have a diagnostic accuracy of about 52%. Now, get this. That's basically on par with a non-expert doctor. This one number is so important because it tells you two things at once, right? One, the tech is already surprisingly powerful. But two, it is definitely not a seasoned specialist. Not yet, anyway. It's a tool with just, incredible potential, but also some very, very real limits.
Okay, so before we go any further, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. What do we even mean by AI in healthcare? Well, at its heart, it's really just the big idea of building systems that can learn from a ton of data. And they use that learning to do things that, normally take a human brain, like spotting patterns, guessing what might happen next, or helping to make a tough call. And this visual here really helps it all click into place. Just think of AI as the giant umbrella, right? The whole concept. Under that umbrella, you've got machine learning, which is all about teaching computers to learn from data without someone having to write code for every single rule. And then a piece of that is deep learning. That's the really powerful stuff that uses these things called neural networks, which are great for super complex jobs like making sense of medical images. All right, let's jump in. Here's what we're going to cover today. We'll start with the AI healthcare revolution, then dive into AI in the clinic. We'll look at the promise versus the reality, then get into the tricky liability question. And finally, we'll talk about your very own AI health companion. Let's get to it. All right, Section 1, the AI healthcare revolution. We're going beyond the hype here. Okay, moving on. Section 2, AI in the clinic. So how is this stuff actually being used right now? So the really key word you need to latch onto here is augmenting. Nobody's talking about replacing doctors or nurses. Not really. The whole point right now is to build tools that make them better at their jobs. Like having a second set of expert eyes on a scan. Or, and this is a huge one, getting them out from under that mountain of paperwork so they can actually spend more time with patients. And we've got cold, hard data to prove this is already happening. Check this out. A big study from 2025 found that when an AI wrote up the reports after a surgery, those reports were 14.5% more accurate than the ones the surgeons wrote themselves. We're talking way fewer major mistakes. That's a real measurable jump in patient safety. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting because it shows you what doctors are actually thinking. Just look at these numbers. For the vast majority of physicians, 57%, the number one thing they want from AI isn't some sci-fi diagnostic wizard. Nope, it's just less paperwork. That crushing administrative burden is a huge cause of burnout. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the biggest wins for AI right now might be the most boring ones. They're the ones that are just fixing the tedious, broken parts of our healthcare system. So all that sounds great, right? But now we need a reality check. Section 3, promise versus reality. Let's talk about the challenges of the real world. And this right here is the million-dollar question. It's the one that everything else hinges on. A model can look like a genius in the lab, working with perfect, clean data. But what happens when you let it loose in the wild? What happens when it sees the messy, unpredictable data from a totally different hospital or a new group of patients? This quote from a huge study really tells the whole story. So you've got these researchers, right? They build this amazing AI model for reading chest x-rays, and it works beautifully at one hospital. But then they take it to other hospitals, and these are hospitals in the same network. And suddenly its performance just tanks. It completely falls apart. And this right here is a perfect example of a massive problem that we call domain shift. So what is domain shift? It's pretty simple, actually. It's what happens when the real world doesn't look like the classroom the AI trained in. The best analogy I've heard is a self-driving car. Imagine you train it only on sunny California highways. It's going to be a superstar, right? But then you drop that exact same car into the middle of a Boston blizzard with those crazy narrow streets. It's going to be a disaster. Well, it's the exact same thing in a hospital. A different hospital might have different x-ray machines, a different patient population, different ways of doing things, and all of those little changes can make a brilliant AI model suddenly look, well, not so brilliant. And this is a great way to see that gap side by side. On the left, you have the lab,
That's our sunny California. Everything's perfect and controlled. On the right, you have the new hospital. That's our Boston snowstorm. It's messy, it's unpredictable. And here's the big takeaway, the thing you really need to get. You can't just build an AI once and expect it to work everywhere. It just doesn't work like that. Each and every time, it has to be tested like crazy and probably even retrained for every single new place it's used.
Okay, so this whole real-world performance issue leads us straight into a very tricky, very gray area. Section 4, the liability question. In other words, when things go wrong, who's responsible? I mean, seriously, this is the question that gives hospital lawyers nightmares. Think about it. If an AI messes up and misses something important in a diagnosis, who's on the hook? Is it the tech company that sold the software? Is it the doctor who trusted it? Or is it the hospital that bought it in the first place? Suddenly, figuring out who's to blame gets incredibly complicated. So, where does the law stand on all this right now? Well, it's actually pretty clear on one major point. The human is still the captain of the ship. The doctor, the licensed professional, is still the one with the ultimate responsibility for your care. And here's why that matters to you. It means that using AI doesn't lower the bar for your doctor. In fact, you could argue it actually raises it. Having this powerful tool means the standard of care might be even higher. The bottom line is, the final call and all the responsibility that goes with it still sits with a person, not a program. All right, so we've talked about the challenges. Now let's wrap up by looking ahead. Section 5, your AI health companion. Let's talk about where this is all going. So get ready for this, because the next big leap for AI isn't going to be in the hospital. It's going to be in your house. People are working on this idea of an AI wellness home. The concept is that you'd have these sensors that just kind of work in the background, and an AI would analyze everything about your daily life, how you sleep, what you eat, how much you move, and it would use all that to give you super personalized advice to keep you healthy. It's a huge shift, right? Away from just treating you when you're sick to actively keeping you well in the first place. And check this out, because this is unbelievably powerful. There are companies out there right now using AI to answer medical questions that we've literally never had answers to. They can dig through mountains of real-world health data to create brand new evidence that's custom fit to one specific patient. Think about how much of a game changer that is. Traditional medical studies, they're slow, they're expensive, and a lot of the time they don't apply to everyone. This could fill in all those gaps. So that brings us back to the big question we started with. Will your next doctor be an algorithm? And after everything we've gone through today, I think the answer is a pretty clear no. But, and this is a big but, that algorithm is almost definitely going to be your doctor's most important partner. It'll be that indispensable tool working quietly in the background, making your care more accurate, more efficient, and more tailored to you than ever before. So no, the revolution isn't about replacement, it's about collaboration.